A federal judge has suspended the pro-life Texas law that bans abortions after a baby's heartbeat is detected. In his order, U.S. District Judge Robert Pittman, appointed by former President Barack Obama, called the pro-life law, quote, an offensive deprivation of the right to an abortion. Officials in Texas say they have appealed the ruling. And joining us now for her analysis is Catherine Hadro, host and managing editor of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Catherine, great to see you first of all.
Good to be with you.
Right out of the gate, what's the response been from the pro-life movement on this judge's ruling?
Well, you read part of what his ruling is, and pro-lifers are really pointing out this ruling sounds a lot more like pro-abortion advocacy and activism than a just ruling. They're also pointing out that, you know, this was a law, the Texas heartbeat law, that went through the state legislature. It was signed by the governor, and now it's being blocked by an unelected judge. And it just goes to point out why pro-lifers want to see Roe v. Wade overturned so that the abortion battle goes back to the states, because when it's decided by the states, life wins.
The judge said he would not sanction one more day of this offensive deprivation of such an important right. Your reaction to that?
Wow. First off, to be clear, the only thing that's offensive is the legal killing of the unborn. That is what is truly offensive. Again, that quote, that really goes to show this abortion activism language, which was this ruling was over 100 pages long, filled with abortion activism language. And it is significant because this is the first significant legal blow to the Texas heartbeat law. It is not a final decision. Pro-lifers need to know that. But what was also concerning language was that in a footnote, he stated that the court recognizes that not all pregnant people identify as women. So wrapped up in this abortion advocacy, there is also an attack on womanhood, an attack on science, and on truth.
You mentioned this is not over yet.
Right.
And I think, you know, for the viewer watching at home, including myself,
Yeah.
this legal stuff really gets complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to the court, it's going to appeals, it's going to the Supreme Court. There's an injunction, there's this, there's after a while you start to, and there's other states
Constantly
involved.
developing.
Right? I mean, you know, it's a whirlwind of stuff, and you kind of after it just blows right by. But this is not over yet. We're talking about the Texas one specifically. So you alluded to it briefly, but what comes next now?
So there is a lot of hope. There has been this appeal, and Texas State Senator Brian Hughes, who was the state senator to author and sponsor this law, he says he's confident the Fifth Circuit will stay and reverse this ruling. So this is what this injunction means. It means that the Texas heartbeat law cannot be enforced right now. However, any violators of this law, so anyone who performs or assists with an abortion, they could still be held liable in case, you know, depending on what happens with this appeal.
So that theoretically could keep the number of abortions hopefully down.
Right. There should still not be post-heartbeat abortions happening because those abortionists could still be found liable. This is not a final ruling yet.
Okay, we can only pray right now for those unborn
Absolutely.
children.
And there is a lot of hope. I mean, the fact that this has been enacted, we can't lose sight in the pro-life movement. This is the first heartbeat law to have been enacted ever. And in the 5 weeks, we know it has saved thousands of unborn lives. That's a success in and of itself.
And of course, coming up, people hear about the Mississippi law, the 15 weeks, that's in the Supreme Court. That's a whole other thing.
Huge.
Does the Texas thing, do you know, impact this at all?
You know, no, that'll be really interesting to see what the Supreme Court does or does not do with this. But I will say the fact there is a lot of optimism on behalf of the pro-life movement when it comes to the Supreme Court, because they did have that narrow ruling that allowed this heartbeat law to be enacted in the first place. There's a lot of optimism and hope about that upcoming Dobbs case that you alluded to on December 1st as well.
Now, your show, EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, an absolutely excellent show.
I appreciate
You
that.
ask terrific questions. I learned so much watching your show. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's on tonight, Thursday night, as always.
Yes.
Who's on tonight? What's on tonight? I imagine you're going to be talking about this.
It's a packed show. So we have Representative Virginia Foxx of North Carolina. She has some reaction to that Women's Health Protection Act, which the House voted on in response to the Texas heartbeat law. We have a pro-life OBGYN from Texas. Archbishop Salvatore Corleone has this beautiful, powerful prayer initiative where he's encouraging Catholics, I know you've reported on it here, to send roses and pray rosaries for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. We'll speak to him. And also, Owen, a really powerful story. We have this Catholic man who was involved with an abortion. His son was aborted, and he speaks to us about the real impact that's had on his life and how he has found healing. There's the first ever of its kind conference coming up for men affected by abortion trauma. We'll be speaking about that as well.
That is a fascinating angle, because so often, how often do you hear of men being involved in talks. I'm glad more of it is happening now, because it used to be, oh, the man just, he's over there, it doesn't matter. No way.
Fathers
No way.
matter. And look at what we're seeing in this culture of death. We need men to stand up more than ever right now.
Catherine Hadro, keep up the excellent work on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, and look forward to seeing it tonight.
Thanks, Owen.